Flying Casual is brought to you by Patreon supporters Brent, David Bush, Jory Webb, Nate Edison, Wes Anderson, Kelly Breckner, and Andy Dugan. May the Force be with you.
You're listening to Flying Casual, a Star Wars podcast. Here's your host, Michael Canterbury.
Yes, you are, and yes, it is, Holly. You are listening to Flying Casual, and yes, it is a Star Wars podcast. Casual fam, welcome back. The power's on, Holly. We have the intranet. It's surprisingly difficult to survive in isolation when you don't have power and no internet.
So earlier, the power went off.
Yeah.
And I was on my phone.
On your phone.
Classic me. And then I was like, the power came back on, but the internet was off. Mm-hmm. And I was like, God.
Were you praying at this point? Like you're just like,
it felt like
God.
it. Bring the internet back.
Yeah.
No, I was like, how am I going to charge my phone if the internet's not on?
Yeah.
Regardless of the fact that the power was on and just fine. This is what isolation has done to me.
That is a true blonde moment for you.
And I haven't been blonde in years.
You're not even blonde. And no offense to, any of our blonde listeners out there, but Holly, that was a moment. It's like you thought, we couldn't survive. Like groceries, like you didn't, like, how are we going to go on,
How will I charge my phone?
Yeah.
That's not a moment that I'm proud of, and now everyone else cannot be proud of me
Everyone knows it. We were in the middle of watching Waco on Netflix, which is a fantastic little show about the like a mini the Waco siege
series. Yeah.
I
was just telling Luke about it. I think I've told everyone about it today. I told Paige about it, and she already watched it. She finished it, and we didn't even finish it.
Oh, it's so good. And I'll say this: I was doing my my David. What's his last name? I can't remember the Lamb of God in that show.
Is it Kersher?
Kersher?
Is that it?
No, it's something different. But I have a really good impression of him, Luke. I'd love to do it for you guys here soon. But Holly got really annoyed with it because it was so spot on. Well, I couldn't stop.
You literally,
that actor has quite he's in the zone there in that show. But anyway, that guy is a total creep. But we're not talking about Waco. We're talking about Star Wars. I've got Holly here with me. I've got Luke with me. All of us have watched the newest episode of Clone Wars, episode 10, season 7, The Phantom Apprentice. So if you have not been paying attention to Clone Wars or haven't watched this episode, come back at another time, because that's all we're talking about, because it was that epic, it was that action-packed, it was that emotional, that it's gonna take up the entire hour. It just, I can feel it in my bones. And we actually talked to the Casual Council last night about it, and I'm like, I can talk more about it, Holly. An hour and a half, so be it. Let's go another hour and a half.
So 3 hours.
3 hours of talking about the Phantom Apprentice, and I'm not mad about it. Chewie may be a little annoyed to hear the same conversation.
You might hear him sigh a couple times.
Probably. But someone we haven't got to talk to, about with Clone Wars about is my friend Lucas. And Lucas, hopefully you got, I'm assuming you have internet there, and your lights are on, it looks like. So, You watched The Phantom Apprentice, my friend. How'd you feel after it? What's your basic feeling on that episode?
Oh, I could not be more blown away by what's going on. I think, going into this, I can't speak for every fan, but in general, the fan base had a lot of confidence in Filoni to deliver something memorable, something special. And even with that expectation being that high going into it, it has, and only halfway done with the final arc, surpassed that for me. It just I was just loving every minute of it, and it set me off on these tangents after I got, I've watched it twice now, and it set me off into watching some Rebels episodes and watching scenes of Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
This evening, as I was getting ready to do this, it's weaved in so beautifully with Revenge of the Sith, and just fantastic.
Yeah, it was. it was heavy. I mean, this episode picked up right where we left off with Ahsoka and Maul kind of faced off, and if I recall, I mean, they have a little interaction, right? He like whips out his lightsaber, and I was like, wait a second, they have to re-encounter each other here, because this isn't the clips we've seen from the trailer. Like, they're just going at it. So they have a brief, duel or whatever. And I want to bring this up. We didn't even really talk about this much in council, but when Ahsoka speaks to Obi-Wan in the hologram, she kind of gets up to speed where we are in episode 3 right now at this point, right? So she learns that Dooku's been killed, that Anakin did it. And Obi-Wan seems a little, I don't know if did he seem upset by it? He seemed concerned for one, and we all know how it went down, but no one else really does. Hey, Dooku's dead, and now I'm gonna go fight Grievous there. But Luke, what did you think about that interaction from Obi-Wan? Because he shares with her some news about Anakin's plan. She's like, "What's Anakin doing?" or whatever, and he's on a special mission. How'd you feel about that? What did you think of her reaction about what was going on?
I've had a hard time focusing on her reaction to that part, other than the fact that I love that it gives us a touch point to know where we are in connection to Revenge of the Sith in the timeline. I thought it was good that she knew Anakin's relationship with Palpatine was a strong one. Yeah. When Obi-Wan filled her in that the council's also asked Anakin to kind of spy on the Chancellor. Yeah. And she was like, "Oh no, like that's probably really hard for him," which she was right. Yeah. So it shows like how well she knows Anakin, that she knew that was going to be a difficult assignment for him. So that much I remember, but to me, like the biggest part of that was like, oh, here's where we are in Revenge of the Sith. So that's what sent me off pulling up Revenge of the Sith on Disney Plus. Yeah. And finding the scenes and the conversations in Revenge of the Sith that like take place right before this hologram communication with Obi-Wan, and the ones right after. So I was watching the scene where like Anakin gets put on the Jedi Council by Palpatine. Yeah. And they're not too happy with him. Or like they don't want to give him the rank of master, and he has that tense back and forth with Mace Windu. Yeah. And then the conversation after the council meeting adjourns, and Obi-Wan fills him in on his little side mission to kind of spy on Palpatine and fill the council in on what Palpatine's up to. So I was watching those scenes and seeing how that connects to the conversation that Obi-Wan had with Ahsoka, where he was, revealing to her what he knows about Darth Sidious, which he says, Maul tells me this name Sidious. What does that mean to you? What do you know about that? And to see Obi-Wan kind of talk about how Sidious is the one who's been playing things from both sides the whole time, which he only knows because Dooku flat out told him in Attack of the Clones. Yeah. Which it took me a minute to like realize, wait a second, how does Obi-Wan know this about Sidious? Yeah. That really threw me off at first. I was like that's right. How is he that right at this point in the story? Yeah. And it's Dooku just flat out told him in Attack of the Clones, and they just haven't been able to put all the pieces together about who Sidious is. Yeah, we've been talking about echoes in Star Wars, and they're doing a lot of that here with the Clone Wars. The conversation actually that Maul and Ahsoka have about Sidious reminded me a lot of that confrontation with Obi-Wan and Dooku, when he's got him captive and he says, a Sith Lord, he doesn't believe him. You're lying. Well, you could join me, we can destroy him together, and I'll never join you. Like it just echoed that moment for me so much. Holly, what did you think? Are they blending well? I know we talked in Casual Council that I had some problems with Anakin and how we're blending him in with the Anakin we know in episode 3, but I was loving the things that Jory was saying about, a lot happens in episode 3, like the Chancellor spying, like there's so many things that happen that really set him on a darker path, more so than he was at the beginning of the film. So what did you think about Ahsoka getting up to speed where we are and in general, that conversation?
Yeah, I mean,
We've talked about it so much. I know how it's like 2 days straight of talking about Clone Wars. I'm kind of sick of it, but
yeah, I mean, I think that everything that you said it blends together. It works for me. So
yeah, it's cool to see Obi-Wan as optimistic as Obi-Wan was about sticking to the council and doing the right thing. There's an interesting moment with Ahsoka and Obi-Wan in hologram, and where they're talking about this job that Anakin's doing. He's spying on the Chancellor, and Obi-Wan mentions, he says, the council isn't always right. Luke, what did you think of that moment? For me, I believe that Obi-Wan's struggling maybe a little bit, but ultimately it feels like Obi-Wan's saying, you know what, Ahsoka, I know what you've been through. I know things have, gone wrong, and, you weren't treated well, and I understand that. We're kind of on the same page. But what did you think about him kind of agreeing with her in that moment?
Yeah, there's two ways that people take, I think, Obi-Wan in the prequels, and there's the camp of like, this guy failed Anakin. If only Qui-Gon would have lived. Yeah. Qui-Gon would have steered Anakin right, and it's Obi-Wan who really dropped the ball. Ugh. But I think there's, being an Obi-Wan apologist as I am, would say a lot of it falls, I think, more on the general leadership of the Jedi, the Council in general. Which, Obi-Wan was only, a council member by the time of Revenge of the Sith, and wasn't on the council in Attack of the Clones, I don't think. I think it was the people higher up who probably had some more of the blame in terms of how they handled him, and not realizing he was a little different and maybe had to treat him differently, given the circumstances with which he came to them and everything, and the power around him. Yeah. I understand that Obi-Wan's thinking, plus talking to Ahsoka, knows how she was kind of treated by the council poorly as well. So he sympathizes with that, and probably feels like the council could do better with Anakin too. Yeah. And so he gets those feelings that Ahsoka has, and that Anakin has, where they don't see eye to eye with a lot of the council's decisions.
Yeah, Clone Wars just the past couple episodes, we've been reminded how much Obi-Wan's dealt with. Like, you're right. Like, did he fail Anakin? Maybe, but like, he also has had a lot on his plate. He didn't want, to take on this apprentice. He's got, Maul coming after him. He had issues with Satine and that emotional connection that he had there, and he lost her, and raising this kind of bratty Jedi, I'm sure, is kind of an annoying thing as well. It's just he's had a lot on his plate, and I thought that was kind of cool that we're seeing that different side of Obi-Wan still, because sometimes he seems like he's the stand-up Jedi, like the council's asking this of you, like, not me, like we need to do your duty, like that's what we're here to do. Save the Chancellor, don't worry about me, Anakin, like do your duty. And, seeing that, he does realize that the council's made mistakes, and it makes him a more level-headed Jedi.
Yeah, and I feel like it also kind of shows that Obi-Wan is actually able to take some responsibility for things that have happened, which I think has not always been the case, and we don't always see that a lot. Yeah. And I kind of think it also speaks to the fact that this is an issue for the whole galaxy. This is a problem for everybody in the galaxy. It's not just here for the Jedi Council to handle. It doesn't just fall on everybody in the Jedi Council's shoulders, and it's not only their responsibility to take care of it, which is, something that Ahsoka also realized when she saw all the things that other people were doing to stand up for their people and themselves. And I kind of feel like this is where it all starts to come together. Hey, Obi-Wan, he's on the council, but he's now recruiting Ahsoka, who's no longer on the council, who has this experience out of the council, to kind of say, like, everything's kind of messed up right now, and we all need to be working together for this common goal. Yeah, and
he recruits her to reach out. Maybe you can reach out to Anakin and talk to him, because she's kind of been down that road with the council. They've not treated her very fairly in this desperate times, and they're asking Anakin to do something they typically wouldn't do, but they know he has that connection, and it's just that's a lot to ask of her. But she seems, I can do that, I guess, and we ultimately know she's not going to get that opportunity, which really stinks. But
that makes me think of another part of this conversation that I really liked is that towards the end, we know Obi-Wan is getting dispatched to go fight Grievous.
Yeah.
So we know Obi-Wan and Anakin are about to have their last moment together before the showdown on Mustafar. Yeah. And it got me thinking, we spent a lot of time last week talking about that last moment with Ahsoka and Anakin together before we know Anakin turns.
Yeah.
And how much weight that had in the episode and how powerful it was and how well they did with it, letting that knowledge wash over you and sink into you as the viewer. And here we're seeing, we know Obi-Wan's about to have his last pre-Mustafar interaction with Anakin before he goes off to fight Grievous. And Ahsoka tells Obi-Wan at the end of the conversation, tell Anakin, and he cuts her off. And he says, I know. Yeah. And I wondered, like, was that part of it? To me struck me as kind of an homage and echoing of I love you, I know, in a weird way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it also leaves me wondering what was the last part of that sentence, you know?
Yeah, I asked Michael that when we were watching it. I was like, what was she going to say? Like, tell Anakin. And then Michael goes, I love you.
Well,
but like, because everyone, I think you kind of understand that, just like, I know, very pointed.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's a big Star Wars thing. And I like that, Luke, you pointed that out. That's kind of like an homage to that. But it like, totally really, is. What was she going to ask?
Well, we talked about that, and we said, like, what would she say, good luck? But it's like she just did that, like, moments earlier. You know what I'm saying? Like, that wouldn't be, to me, that wouldn't be her final words to him. But I think Obi-Wan knows how close that they were. It was more as close, if not closer, than the two of them. I mean, Obi-Wan tells Anakin, you were my brother.
Yeah.
I loved you. He tells Anakin that. So I think you can easily say this isn't a romantic thing. This is like, you're my little sister. You're Snips. Like, I love you like you were my own sister. I think that is what she was gonna portray in that moment. And Obi-Wan knows that. He's been through a lot with those two, and he knows he has the same admiration for his apprentice, and he absolutely knows that Anakin, who, let's be honest, is a little more open to connections, you know, than the Jedi actually allow, and we know Obi-Wan is too, but Anakin more so. He thinks it's, you know, the council actually encourages them to love. He has a distorted view of what the council actually views, but I think that's what she would say. That tell him I love him, like, yeah, Michael, no matter what you're going through.
As you were saying that, the brother line, I had a vision of like Ahsoka in Obi-Wan's place on Mustafar, saying the same thing. Yeah, you're my brother, Anakin. I love you.
Yeah.
One of the scenes I just watched, like right before we did this, to kind of see how it connects, is that last conversation Anakin and Obi-Wan have before Obi-Wan leaves to fight Grievous. And it's a very like warm conversation, and I think reinforces what we were talking about Obi-Wan's feeling and responsibility for Anakin versus sort of the Jedi Order as a whole, or the Council. And in the scene, Obi-Wan says to Anakin, like, I'm so proud of you, basically, of what you become. And it's very fatherly, older brother like praise, you know, about how proud he is of Anakin, and Anakin's there sort of complaining about the Council's treatment of him to Obi-Wan. So, and Obi-Wan's trying to just reinforce him and build him up, because he's struggling with how the Council's treating him. And so it's really powerful to think about that in connection with the conversation we were having about how Obi-Wan and Ahsoka view the Council and how they've treated people like Anakin and her.
Absolutely.
You know, that what Luke just said makes me think, on the Casual Council, we were kind of speculating if in the future Anakin comes back, if we ever see Anakin come back as a Force ghost, but he is able to have a conversation with Ahsoka in the future after all of this happens, what would that conversation be? And I'm just curious, Luke, if you have any idea, or if there's any sort of conversation that you think that you would like, because we were kind of talking about, you know, what would Ahsoka say?
Yeah.
And I don't know if she would demand answers, or if it would be like a deeper, warmer conversation now that she's older and wiser. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a big shout out to Nettie, because that's what we were asking, like what he would want to see with Ahsoka in the future, and he said, kind of a full circle Anakin and Ahsoka moment. And what would that be? And Nettie didn't know at the time kind of what he wanted from that. He just knew that kind of closure would be nice. Luke, any thoughts? I mean, we're kind of jumping off of Clone Wars, but I think that it was such a good conversation. I can't wait for you to hear it.
That speaks to how great this episode and these episodes are, and this arc has been so far, that they are so connected to the whole lore, the greater story, that Nettie can draw this beautiful connection that he's able to do. Those guys in the council are so great. They come up with these connections. And it's great tangents that we can go off on. And I really love that. Gosh, seeing that scene would send shivers down my spine, I think.
Yeah.
And you sort of need it in the Anakin and Ahsoka relationship. Because think of the last time we've seen, in terms of timeline, seen them interact. Vader was trying to kill her on was it Malachor, the planet in Rebels, where they they meet Maul and get into the temple, and he shows up, and there's the big fight, and we think Ahsoka might have been killed by Vader. That was a really rough last interaction between those two. Yeah. So you want that relationship to have a more amicable end, a coming together, a resolving of those tensions and those confrontations that they had there. So that would be really fantastic to see. Anakin would have to apologize. I think he has the more to answer for there, and I would assume he would sort of thank Ahsoka for being wise enough to, even though she left the Jedi, to sort of stay in the light and stay fighting, for good. Yeah. Despite that, I think he would have some real admiration for her, that she was able to do what he couldn't in a way.
Yeah.
That's exactly where our conversation went. And it got me thinking, everyone wanted, and I can't wait for you guys to hear this conversation, because we went on this tangent in council and it was awesome. But it got me thinking, like, so many people wanted to see Hayden Christensen show up in The Rise of Skywalker. And,
that was me.
Right? and me too. And the more you think about it, it's like, man, that would just be kind of weird. She shows up, or he shows up, and Rey's just like, who the hell are you? And then Luke's there, and he's like, that's my father. Yeah, I get he's a little younger than me, but
it's fine.
We've been hanging out here in October.
We've been kicking it, getting to know each other a little longer, but that just would be kind of weird. We know, we'd be able to fill in kind of the blank space there and know, like, why, but it would make much more sense if we do see Ahsoka down the line really struggling with something. She's been burned a lot, and she kind of has her ups and downs of where she not stands, but just like how she feels about the Jedi or about whatever. So maybe she's down on her luck at some point, and Anakin, he shows up as a Force spirit and just says, you know what, you've known what you needed to do all along. You didn't need me. You're doing what I couldn't do, and it's been with you all along. And I couldn't be more proud of you. Like Luke was saying, like, I could not be more proud of you. Just like, once again, Obi-Wan telling Anakin, like, you'll become a far greater. You've become a far greater Jedi than I ever could have imagined. And I feel like that in a time of need, he would show up, because you wouldn't think that she would really summon him and be like, Anakin, I need answers. Like that. The last time that they met, like Luke said, he was trying to kill her. So I feel like what a great moment that would be. And I would pay to see that. I mean, I'm not necessarily needing something Ahsoka, like a whole Ahsoka series. I think it'd be great. But like, now thinking about that in that conversation we had, like, that would be the payoff right there to bring Hayden back and give him that moment, especially for how beloved Ahsoka is now, and for Anakin to come back and have that moment with her. Maybe not with his son, but with her. I think that it would work beautifully. I can't wait to see it. I think it's going to happen. Let's hope. So we're left there. Ahsoka kind of up to date on things, and she well, let's see. So Maul, kidnaps one of her clones, right? Like one of the oldest clones. I can't remember, Jesse or something like that. His name, I can't remember. Grabs him and uses an old Kylo Ren mind trick. We're seeing a lot more of that, and gets necessary information on Ahsoka. He's got this. He's been seeing visions of a Skywalker, and now he's making the connections. One thing I was wondering is how they have this confrontation. Ahsoka knows who he is, right? Maul has no idea who she is. Why is this going to matter? What's going to make this epic? And by God, the writing, this story matters now. It matters. And Maul now knows who she is and what connections she has, and he's had visions. Luke, I want to hear your thoughts on these visions. Last night, I'm just so impressed with Maul. Holly said while we were watching it, I think Darth Maul is my favorite Star Wars character now.
I said one of. Yes, that's true.
It blows my mind, though, right? We've said this multiple times. A character who was just, some guy who looked cool that had a double-edged lightsaber, and people were kind of bummed they didn't see more of him. He had wicked moves, things we'd never seen, and then George Lucas brings this character back, and he's now one of the most complex individuals in all of Star Wars, and he has a vision of the future, and it seems clear as day because he sees Anakin Skywalker becoming Sidious's apprentice. Luke, were you blown away with just Maul's insightfulness? Like, what did you think of that scene?
Yeah, epic. If you think of the best Clone Wars and Rebels episodes that there are, a good chunk of your top 5, top 10 of both of those are going to involve Maul. He's been used so brilliantly.
Yeah.
I think when I first heard that he returned in the series, there's a little bit of an eye roll and instant reaction, like, really, this guy kind of half comes back.
Yeah.
But gosh, that was one of the best decisions. I think it was George's decision back when he was really involved with the series. And sort of, I think, some regret from George about killing him off in episode 1.
Yeah.
And bringing him back and using him in this great way that he is now sort of privy to a lot of what Sidious was putting in motion, but now has been cast aside and is outside of it and is trying to carve his own path, and has not only now hatred for the Jedi and like Obi-Wan, who defeated him on Naboo, but also for Sidious so readily casting him aside.
Yeah.
And so he just has hate upon hate, extra hate everywhere.
Yeah.
And he is this complex character. And it reminded me of Freddie Prinze Jr.'s comments where he called, I can't remember if this was in his rant that went kind of viral, where he called Maul Sisyphus from Greek mythology, who just over and over again is rolling the boulder up the hill, and then it falls down, and he has to do it for eternity. He's just this guy who, no matter what he does, things seem to fall apart, and that's the brilliant, like, broken character we finally get in Rebels. And I love part of this episode sort of reference the Son of Dathomir comic line that we talked about.
Absolutely.
Talking about how he would previously imprisoned by Dooku, which is part of that storyline, which again we talked about last week, were originally going to be an arc of the Clone Wars, several episodes, and I've heard some other people say this, and I really hope it comes true, that they go back and say that's such a great story, such a great arc, to only now have on screen in a passing reference in this episode from Maul. Let's go back and make a 75-minute movie. That's the Son of Dathomir's story.
That'd be so epic.
And put that out there. That would be, I really hope. I'm not going to hold my breath for that, but that would be fantastic. We're sort of getting back to this story, because Maul was defeated in that Son of Dathomir line by the droids and by Grievous and the Mandos pretty handily. And then now they get their butts whipped by the Republic, and the clone troopers showing up here too. So just over and over again, he's getting knocked down and defeated, and he still is just driven in revenge against Sidious, revenge against Obi-Wan. And I thought it was totally unexpected that he was going to have these visions of Anakin.
Yeah.
And I loved it, and that he wants to have lured Anakin there to destroy him before he could become Sidious's new apprentice. That was just an unbelievable sort of little twist in this that I wasn't expecting to come about, and really enjoyed that. Did you guys see anything like that coming?
Not at all. It blows. I mean, because sometimes you sell Maul short, and you're like, he failed. He's so focused on revenge, so focused on defeating Obi-Wan, who cut him in half. Who he didn't know anything about Obi-Wan. He had no other interactions other than that moment. He's hell bent on confronting that man again to destroy him. And you think ultimately that revenge and that hatred is what doesn't allow him to reach his potential, which sounds weird when you're talking about the dark side, but like, or what he wants to achieve, he just fails because he's not able to get past that. But for him in this moment to put that aside and say, I had a vision and I trust that vision so much that I am going to pursue that and destroy Sidious for what he's done to me. It almost leaves you feeling like Maul, there's another side of Maul, and you see that in Rebels. There's almost a redemption moment there. Holly, when we watched that, was just like, was Maul redeemed, so to speak? And you kind of think that, right? Like he'll avenge us all, or he says about the Chosen One, something like that.
That's exactly what he said.
It feels like to me that like there's a bigger part of Maul there that doesn't get recognized much because he's so focused on revenge and he's follows the dark side, whatever. But like a part of me feels like Maul wanted to do what was right. However, Ahsoka kind of calls him out on that, right, and says you would just.
Why? So why would I help you strike him down just so you can replace him?
Exactly.
That's what she says.
So ultimately, he wants that power, but you got to ask yourself: is there a side of him that really just wants to destroy this thing, this Dark Lord who is going to change the entire galaxy? Holly, did you have any idea this was coming?
No, but this is the tragedy of Darth Maul, right? I mean,
freaking love it.
You really could have. I mean, that could be its own thing, the tragedy of Darth Maul.
Yeah.
Because Luke made a great point. We see him continue to get pushed down time and time and time again, but he's so resilient, he just keeps coming back. I mean, he got cut in half and he came back. Yeah. So I feel like you have to give him props for, being so determined and continuing to come back. But on the other hand, if we're looking at it from someone like Ahsoka's point of view, and you see that he's so ingrained in the dark side, he knows all this witchcraft, he's, a Sith Lord, he cannot be trusted. Yeah. And for a minute, we see her kind of have a lapse in judgment, perhaps you can say that. Yeah. I don't know, because ultimately, like, you don't know what the outcome of that partnership would have been. Yeah. But for a second, you kind of want to believe him that he does want to do the right thing. Yeah. Would it be the right thing for us from our perspective? Probably not. Yeah. But, I mean, it would definitely take down the common enemy.
To me, it's like, oh, God. It is so tragic, Holly, because you want there to be some hope out there. Like, someone out there, knew Order 66 was coming. Like, I thought for a minute it could have been even Ahsoka finds out something and she tries to stop it and she comes short. It's something. But it's Darth Maul who has foreseen it all. Yeah. And is willing to put aside, this beef with Obi-Wan Kenobi, and go to Sidious. And I mean, his issues with Sidious if you've seen prior issues of the Clone Wars, and now if you especially have read the Son of Dathomir line. But it's so tragic in that it's Darth Maul who could have ended it all.
He also put himself in the position to not have any help because he's made himself such an unreliable. I don't know. He just. Can you trust him? I don't know. So he kind of did it to himself. Yeah. But.
Well, and wouldn't you know it, the the biggest opportunist of all has Ahsoka fall into his lap. Wait a second. This Anakin Skywalker I've foreseen in my visions becomes the key to it all. of bringing the galaxy to its knees, to destroying the Jedi, to changing the galaxy, and his apprentice is here? Are you kidding me? I could use her. She could weaken Skywalker, and we could destroy him. Luke, the moment they're having this conversation, once again, so many echoes here, puts out his hand, join me. It took me back to Rey and Ben Skywalker, and you see, Rey's a little bit of her naivete or immaturity and wanting to take that hand and not really understanding what, it could become. And Ahsoka, like you said, Holly, has maybe a momentary lapse of judgment. And it's interesting because you've seen Rebels, you see where Ahsoka goes and you see what she becomes, but we're back to a younger Ahsoka who's been, there's still all these things coming at her. She's still learning, she's still growing, and says, I don't even really know who this Sidious is. Obi-Wan said he's heard of him. Maul now is confirming that this thing is happening per his visions. I'll join you, but I mean, Luke, were you surprised that she almost took the hand? I was blown away. I was blown away by this whole conversation.
First off, I'm really happy that you pointed out the echo part of that, because that's what I thought too. It's sort of a classic Star Wars moment. The outstretched hand, that image, the outstretched hand, and join me together. We can defeat this other party, which on its face sounds fine and nice. You know, you think of Vader saying to Luke, together we can defeat the Emperor. Yeah. Great. But what happens after that? What are you going to do on the other side of that moment where we've defeated the Emperor? What's after that? That's why I won't join you. Yeah. And same for Rey and Kylo, in at least in The Last Jedi, join me. Yeah. Let the past die. No, I can't join you. I can't abandon, my new family and friends. Yeah. I'm not going to go to where you want to go with that. Same for Anakin and Padme. Yeah. Join me. Let's rule together. Mm-hmm. This is my new empire. We can get Sidious out of the way again. Palpatine out of the way. Yeah. Okay, that part sounds good, but what are you going to do after that? No, that part doesn't sound good. How would you rule? You're going to be a dictator? Yeah. Over and over again, the outstretched hand, join me, and then the rejection. But the interesting sort of twist with Ahsoka here, she's on board in terms of like, what's the most immediate pressing need? If what he's saying is true, which it sounds like he's in the know, it lines up with what Obi-Wan's telling me. Yeah. Maybe I can't think of the second step right now. I just have to think of primary one, save the galaxy from being taken over by this Sith Lord. Yeah. So if I join with him to defeat him and we accomplish that goal, maybe we'll sort out the rest later. It's a little bit Qui-Gon like, being present in the now. In the now, yep. And sort of not getting too far ahead of yourself. But then, in a way, the council is kind of right here, because the only thing that stops Ahsoka from going down that path and potentially following a path of joining with him to defeat Sidious, which is debatable if that would have even been possible, but putting that aside, the only thing that stops her really is her personal relationship with Anakin. Yeah. And so if she would have done the more council way of being more emotionally removed, less attached emotionally, maybe she would have followed through on that initial instinct. Yeah. But it was her emotional attachment to Anakin and her feelings for Anakin that if the plan was the first thing we have to do is go kill Anakin, destroy him or whatever, then no, I'm not on board for that. That's a deal breaker. Yeah. So to me, it was kind of ironic because for the most part, we feel in the conversation we were having earlier, the Council and the Jedi Order as a whole did Ahsoka wrong. Yeah. But that one teaching maybe was would have served her better here, possibly. I thought that was a really interesting twist on the whole situation.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
So here's a question for both of you then.
Oh, man.
Do you think that if Ahsoka had maybe a little more insight about who Sidious was and what possibly was to come, do you think that would have changed the decision that she made? Do you think she would have joined forces with Maul temporarily?
Holly, it reminds me of a young man by the name of Ezra Bridger. right? He, if she, but that's the thing, like another echo, like it just, he, I don't know. He apparently didn't learn, from his mistakes with Ahsoka, but I think she might have, but she only has his word to go off, and Obi-Wan saying, Dooku told me of Sidious. So she doesn't really have much information. Why believe Maul? She knows he's manipulative. She knows he can't be trusted. She clearly says that. She says that even in Rebels. So I don't know. She said, yeah, but tell me one thing. Like, if it weren't for Anakin, like Luke said, I think she may have done that. And we may have seen a relationship like her and Ezra, a mutual, whatever. We're going to get something out of this both, and then we're going to go our separate ways. Boy, that would have been interesting, though, because she's, Ezra was a little more immature than she is. She's seen a little more than he has. So I don't know. I think she would have. I do. Luke?
Yeah, I mean that's where my head was, and that's where I was interpreting that she would have, and that was the deal breaker.
Yeah, that moment Anakin becoming the new apprentice of Sidious. There's no way. Another echo. It's just like Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan hears lost your apprentices, whatever Yoda says to him, like, I can't go destroy him. He's my brother. Like, send me to fight the Emperor. It's like you just watched him. He didn't believe you at first until he watched him slay younglings on a holovid. And it's just, it is that compassion and that love that they have for him outside of the council's ways that, and she, hearing that, attacked them all. Like, and just is on the offensive at that point. So, I don't know. You were gonna say something.
Well, that's where that human. I mean, this whole episode, like, truly to me spoke to how, like, no matter what the Jedi teach you, what the council teaches you, and what rules you have, human emotion is always going to take over. And I know no matter how much they say you have to remove yourself from that, because that shrouds your vision. It allows you to make poor decisions, and you don't have great judgment when you are, so involved and have all these emotions. You can't stop it.
Yeah.
Inherently we all have those moments, and that's something that we see with Ahsoka and why she lashes out, because she's in absolute denial that could possibly happen. No, I know Anakin so well. He would never do anything like that. Yeah. And that's why these episodes, like, as the audience, are so hard to watch, because like, I know when we were watching this the whole time, I just wanted to be like, listen to Maul, because he is so right. Just listen to him.
It's scary how clear his vision was. Yeah. Right? I mean, the only other individual I can think of, that has such a clear vision, I mean, Anakin does, so to speak, but it was also kind of Palpatine manipulating him. But Palpatine himself, I mean, foreseeing a lot of things, putting a lot of things into motion. I mean, that speaks to Maul's strength and his ability to actually look to the future and gain insight. It's just, I was not expecting that at all. And Maul surprises me every step of the way. And can we also, another echo, I kind of skipped over this part, but when Maul's sitting on the throne there on Mandalore, got his leg up just like he did, in prior seasons, and Bo-Katan comes out blazing, right? Sees him on the throne, and another echo to Empire, right? I mean, just the blocking of the blaster bolts. We haven't seen that happen since Darth Vader, to my knowledge. So it's just like, he's powerful. He is powerful. And a nice little comedic moment, too, right? There's a bunch of explosions outside of the little temple there, and he's just like... Are you going to tend to that? Or one of you should tend to that? It was just hysterical. But ultimately, I love... Like, it's just, like I said, it's so... This interaction is so purposeful, and I love that. It's not boring, unnecessary writing to just show us a great lightsaber scene. Maul went to Mandalore to bring Skywalker. Am I wrong? That's the whole point, was to bring them there so he could defeat him. It's just insane. And when they're in that throne room too, I love his almost admiration for Sidious's plan. I think if I recall, he sees all the clones. He's like, this is how you're gonna do it. He says something like that. He's just like, wow, this is all making sense now. This is how you're going to do things. It was crazy. He respects the hell out of him for what he's able to do. But it's just the fact that he's there on Mandalore, and it matters. It isn't necessarily just, yes, he's power hungry. Yes, this is a power move. But there's also something else bigger involved that has consequences for the entire galaxy. Mm-hmm. That just, I could go into the humanization of Darth Maul. That may be a special that we do at some point. But there's just so much there that there's more purpose for it. The things that he's doing than just gaining
let's
power.
Talk about the final moments of Maul. It was so haunting. As Ahsoka's holding him there with the Force holding him from falling, and he says, let me go. Like, he's ready to let go.
Yeah.
He's ready to stop being Sisyphus, eternally pushing the boulder up the hill.
Yeah.
He's ready to let go at that moment, and she won't do it. And then the sort of straitjacket screams that he has of like a madman who's ranting and raving.
Yeah.
When he's all tied up when the gunships come up and kind of sort of tie him up with those lines, and he's ranting and raving, we're all going to burn, you're all going to die.
Yeah.
And he's right in many ways. Like, yeah, the Emperor is about to rise and take over the galaxy.
Yeah.
But he just sounds like this loony guy that they're going to tie up and throw in a cell.
Yeah.
At that moment. Those were just powerful scenes.
It's too bad because, we've talked a lot about how like Maul is such an opportunist and he's so power hungry and he always has some sort of plan to like try to get people to do things with him so he can get what he wants. But in this moment, it's almost like, that was the final moment for Ahsoka to actually take what he was saying seriously.
Yeah.
And she didn't. So he absolutely gave up. And to me, if you know Maul as a character, like that's when she really should have been like, wow, maybe this actually is for real. It's not him just being a crazy person. This is a man who, like, I said no to what he said needed to be done because of the visions that he had. And now, since that's not going to play out, he would rather die than continue to live the way that we're going.
Well, because he tells his Mandos and maybe even the crime syndicate leaders there that, like, this is an opportunity for us. Like, with all the chaos that's going to ensue, there's a power move here. But once that's gone, you don't understand. I would rather be dead than experience what y'all are gonna experience. Yeah. Because I've immersed myself in this now. Like, I'm gonna have to be a part of it. And so you're right. Like, what a powerful moment, and that speaks to the vision that he's seen and what's going to. It's not just gonna affect the galaxy. He said the dark side is stronger than it's ever been. And that this is going to affect the entire galaxy. The galaxy will be put to its knees or something. He says something like that. But it was just, it was insane. And I want to also talk about something we didn't really talk about in council. But the lightsaber battle was amazing. And I was remembering, like, why it was so amazing. A lot of it was actual motion capture. They brought Ray Park in to do motion capture for Maul in that scene. And they also had another motion capture actress there doing Ahsoka's part. Like, the movements felt so much more fluid. He was more reminiscent of Maul and the Phantom Menace than anything. Everything felt kind of choppy in prior Clone Wars, but his spin moves and stuff, they flowed much better.
I know there were a lot of criticisms of why I saw a lot of people upset, like, he can fight better than that. Like, this doesn't make any sense. But I read that too. Someone on Reddit I saw had said, they were having his character on the show mimic the way that Ray Park was having him fight in the movies. I didn't realize that Ray Park had actually come in. I thought that they had just had it mimic the movies. But, I mean, that makes sense. Yeah. But, I don't know. It almost makes it kind of better. It makes it feel more real. It
makes it feel more connected. This feels more cinematic, right? It's almost a little more special, and that they didn't do this all along because it just adds much more, like you said, to the realness. It makes it blend more. Like, this, wow, we're really coming up to Order 66 here. Like, that is Maul. It's not that kind of, big mechanical legged guy that we saw coming out, with the spider legs. Like, this is like Ray Park in the flesh. So it was just, I mean, to see him with his double lightsaber, another Echo pulling out a saber, just like in the Phantom Menace in that moment, and seeing him battle Ahsoka with two blades was super cool. And Ahsoka,
Michael.
Yeah.
We're so on the same page with so many of the stuff tonight about this episode, because I watch the credits after all these episodes because I like to see like, were there some guest appearances or what did they name that character in the credits, and you can sometimes verify that stuff. So I saw there's a line in the casting credits of Ray Parks being the stunt performer.
Yeah.
Maul, and then I don't remember the woman's name who did Ahsoka, not having any prior knowledge of who she is either.
Yeah.
But I took from that it was some kind of motion capture. I haven't really read any stories or heard any other background on it, but that's what I assume when you see that in the credits, the way they did that, and that is really amazing that they went that far, because I, watching it earlier on before seeing that in the credits, felt like it had a Ray Park look to it. It had a Phantom Menace look to many things. So it's amazing that visual was that strong to come through and without prior knowledge of it.
Yeah.
And for me, I'll throw this out there. Wonder what you think of it is. I think a lot of the best lightsaber fights, just on a pure like fight action sequence, visual level, a lot of the best lightsaber fights are in the Clone Wars. I think they in certain ways surpass what you see in the movie, just because sort of they can increase the dexterity of these animated characters beyond sort of what normal people can do. So like fights with Asajj Ventress, I think of the one where her and Obi-Wan are teamed up against Savage and Maul.
That's an
epic one. There's some Dooku fights, and there's so many great lightsaber fights in Clone Wars. It's fantastic, and then even in Rebels as well. So to me, like I said, a lot of the best ones are in these animated series.
Yeah.
They maybe not as emotionally powerful as some of the acting that accompanies the live action ones, but I wonder what your take on that. Do you prefer the live action movie lightsaber fights just on the fighting aesthetics, or the animated ones?
I agree. I think the animated stuff, I mean, it's like you said, it's superior in so many ways, and it makes sense that it would be. And but I do come to Star Wars for a lot of the emotion behind what's happening. And if it weren't for folks like, and Holly's going to make fun of me here when I say this, Sam Witwer doing the acting behind it and doing the voice.
A little bit of a crush.
Oh,
little bit.
There's 20-minute conversation on the council of me talking about him. But like the moment where he's strung up and like you said, he screamed out like, "You're all going to die. Like, you don't understand." It took me back to his confrontation with Kenobi in Rebels. It was so powerful, and that is all, Sam Witwer. And so for me, like, they're able to make it that much more, I don't know, emotionally just profound for me, because it's not just cartoons fighting, and that's great. I love the visuals, but like the people they have doing the actual voice acting for this is what really brings it home for me. When he screamed out, I just turned to Holly and put out my arm, and every single hair just standing up. It was terrifying. It was just like him hitting his lightsaber in the ground and yelling at Kenobi. It was just, it's just, they couldn't have picked someone better to do that voice. But Holly, I'll let you speak.
I don't know, Luke, that's a really, really tough question. And as you were actually talking about this, in my head, I was like, I actually wonder if after some of these lightsaber fights that are happening in this final season of the Clone Wars, well, I guess really this final arc, I wonder if anybody's like top 5 or top 10 lightsaber battles that they had on their list are going to have to change. You know? Because I think this was a really great moment, and I think that there are things that I really like about the actual live action shows and the lightsaber battles that we see there that can't be replicated in the animated series.
Yeah.
And then vice versa. There are things in the animated series that I really love that we just can't really do. Well, maybe we can do it more now with CGI on screen. But in terms of, like, if you're thinking about the original trilogy or even when the prequels came out, those things couldn't really be replicated, but they did what they could. And I think those lightsaber battles in the movies still have a lot of merit to them. And I think that those are still a lot of fan favorites.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can pick one or the other, though.
Let me say one thing. Now, the Phantom Menace and Revenge of the Sith have epic lightsaber battles, right? But I have to say that Adam Driver and Daisy Ridley changed the game.
Yeah.
They changed the game. We went from, you know, the prequels, which were fantastic. They were choreographed amazingly. Almost, though, too choreographed to a point where it was so sophisticated that the emotion, it felt like Hayden Christensen and Obi-Wan, Ewan McGregor, you know what I'm saying? It's almost like they were so complex that the emotion couldn't come out, and we've almost, in the sequel trilogy, kind of simplified things, but that takes away the credit of Daisy Ridley and Adam Driver, who in those moments, it's not the romantic connection for me that makes it's their acting in those moments. It's so amazing, and a lot of that's the cinematography and how they're working things, but it's just those two in particular changed lightsaber dueling for me and are at the tippy top tier. So I love the animated stuff and I love the voice acting coming with it, but like they changed the game. They changed the game.
When they do it together, it feels very raw.
Yeah.
And I feel like there are moments like that in the other movies, but I feel like this feels more like those emotions are real between them.
Yeah.
You know, and you can feel the anger and you can feel the sadness in those moments. And to me, maybe even more so than the prequels and the original trilogy.
Yeah. Luke?
I was saying, like, what was springing to mind as you guys were talking about it is the prequels and the Clone Wars lightsaber fights are more like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, a lot of fast, sort of defying gravity stuff in a way. And then sort of the original trilogy and sequel trilogy are a little more like Braveheart, medieval, a little more brute to it. And I think a lot of that comes from, in the sequel trilogy, Adam Driver's physicality. He's a big dude.
Yeah.
Big dude. Yep.
And he really throws that lightsaber around.
Yeah.
And is often wielding it, you know, with a double hand and not like lightly just fencing through. And it's amazing to me that Daisy Ridley, as sort of petite as she appears, that she can kind of play that way too, and she's giving it back to Adam and Kylo in sort of the same way. It's definitely a very a different style, a different feel to the confrontation, much more raw. And I guess I'd like brutish, like medieval. Just battling, bashing each other. Than the more finesse that we see earlier on. And another sort of question I wonder how it struck the two of you was, I was surprised. It seems to me like the Maul confrontation is pretty well wrapped up in this episode. I wasn't expecting the confrontation with Maul to be wrapped up until towards the end of the arc. So that's got my mind going like, what are we going to get in these final two episodes? I know for sure we're going to continue to get touch points showing us where are we in Revenge of the Sith timeline right now. The big one coming that we're waiting for is Order 66. So sort of my two-part question is, were you a little surprised that we are where we are in the timeline of these episodes, given it's only halfway through the arc? And second, I was rewatching some Rebels episodes today, and the Rebels episode, or yesterday when I was cooking in the kitchen for a little while, I was watching some Rebels season 2 when Ahsoka sends them the Ghost crew to go find Rex. And, you know, there's the tension between Kanan and Rex and the clones that are there because of Order 66. Kanan experienced it firsthand, and he doesn't trust the clones. But in that episode, Rex tells him, no, we had our control chips removed.
Yeah.
Prior to Order 66, we didn't partake in Order 66 essentially.
Yeah.
So Rex is walking around right now in these episodes on the verge of Order 66. I haven't heard, there's been no mention of the chip. I don't see in the Rebels, he's got a scar around his temple where it was taken out. So that has to be addressed in these episodes coming up. So I'm wondering what your thoughts are on those things.
Holly?
I don't know. I think we kind of talked a little bit about the chips on the last Council episode that we did last night. I think that maybe I haven't seen enough of the other Clone Wars series because I know that a couple of the guys were talking about there was mention of a chip removal earlier in the series. So I don't think that I haven't seen those episodes. So everything that I'm comparing this season of Clone Wars to is what I've been watching on Rebels. So I had those same thoughts. I actually was wondering if we might see a little bit more of a young Kanan in this series. We've kind of speculated about if we're going to see, Darth Maul escape because of Order 66 happening, which kind of would be a nice way to end him being in the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
I don't know. I know I've said it a million times. I don't really feel like I can go into this with a lot of expectations because it could go anyway. Michael?
Well, I said this in council, and it's just when I think I know what's going to happen, they just go and do something complete opposite, and it's just holy cow, this makes the situation that much more complex. So to me, I figured Ahsoka and Maul would duel, and you see his ship hovering above. I thought the clones would come. They'd shoot at him. He'd run away. Cool. Okay, we know now Maul gets away, and Ahsoka's there. Okay, what happens? We don't know. But that's lazy. That's lazy writing. No, Dave Filoni says, hell with that. Maul's going to get his ass captured, and here's something else now you're going to be wondering, what the hell's going to happen to Maul? We know the clones are going to turn, but what does that mean for him? Are they still going to say, no, he doesn't serve the Emperor? What does that mean for him? And I feel like Order 66 now has to be a little more explained, because what do you do with your prisoners? They're not the generals in command of you. And then it's, what happens with Ahsoka now? You think of Ahsoka getting turned on by the clones, and you're like, that's terrible. But now that we see her company have painted their helmets to show solidarity with her, and you're going to see those damn clones now shooting at her, it's going to be so freaking sad. It's just insane. All these little things they've added that make it that much more emotional or that much more complex, or make me ask questions that I never even would have thought to begin with. It's just Order 66 is going to be much more complicated. Now, I do think we're going to see a little bit of Kanan out there. I think we might see him, and his master sacrificed, because that, like we talked about in Rebels, him coming into contact with them makes it that much more impactful. You're I know exactly what Kanan went through.
Can we go back to the chip for a second?
Yeah.
Now Luke's got me thinking.
Come on.
Maybe I missed this somewhere along the way, which I wouldn't be surprised. I haven't watched a lot of the Clone Wars, really, except for the first couple of seasons in this season. I don't think I missed it in Rebels, because I have been paying attention to Rebels.
Yeah.
Do we know what kind of prompted some of the clones to remove their chips? Why? Why?
We're on Geonosis, right, Luke? And there's one in particular, and the guy said it was 9s, and I think they're right. I can't remember who was there. 5s.
Yeah, 5s I would say is my favorite clone, other than Rex, if I had to pick one. I love that arc. Holly, I'd recommend, maybe if you have the time, just to watch that arc. It's the beginning of season 6. It's a 4-episode arc.
Okay.
And it starts, the reason they know something's up is one of his buddies, his chip kind of malfunctions.
Yeah. And
I won't give it away, but he ends up doing something that a clone shouldn't do. It's very bad. I don't want to spoil it totally for you if you want to go watch them. And that like, and Fives is his buddy. I can't remember the clone's name who kind of has the chip malfunction.
Yeah.
But his buddy clone Fives, doesn't think it was something he intended to do, and he wants to help him. He thinks, I know there's something wrong with him. I need to help him.
Yeah.
So he goes back to Geonosis with him, or not Geonosis, Camino.
Camino.
Clone,
yeah. Did I say Geonosis? I meant Camino.
I don't know. Anyway. Yeah. And the Caminoans are trying to just kind of like make this guy go away who basically malfunctioned, to try to cover up what's going on.
Yeah.
But Fives is like, no, I know he wouldn't do this. Something's up. We got to figure this out. And so the rest of the arc is like Fives digging in, sort of discovering the conspiracy of the way that the clones can be controlled, and basically that the chip explains how their sudden turn of being, loyal to the Jedi generals that they have and following their orders throughout the Clone Wars, to all of a sudden the turning on the dime of Order 66 and assassinating them, which is, like, hard to understand. Like, how did they do that? How was Palpatine able to get them to do that? I think it's a really cool addition to that background, that canon of how was he able to pull that off. And the Fives clone character, like I said, is like my favorite clone other than Rex, and I really love the arc. So definitely, if anyone hasn't watched it, first 4 episodes of season 6, go back, check it out. I think it's one of the better ones. Good stuff.
And
I'll have to check that out.
It's amazing too, because it just, well, Anakin says loyalty is the most important thing to a clone. It's like, yeah, and it's not just like a joke on, well, Order 66 is coming and that you'll see that play out. It's like, no, there's a loyalty to their brothers. Like, yeah, they're clones, but like they're family, and they, if it was Fives or whoever, it's just like, no, he wouldn't do that. You don't understand. There's a loyalty there, and there's so many human elements to them, and they just, I don't know. It's so complex, and it's so emotional. And there's things back in episodes or season 6 that we weren't even thinking of then. But it's going to be so tragic, and I can't imagine what we're going to see. I don't think we're going to see a bunch of repetition of what we've seen in Order 66. It's going to make it that much more impactful. I think you will see Kanan. I think you'll see, Ahsoka and Rex just being like, what the hell is happening? Like, you're going to have to, like, slay the people you fought beside, and you don't know what the hell's going on. Mm-hmm. And that light's going to go off for her and say, oh, my God, Maul was right. Like, how, like, what? And what's going to happen to Maul? It's going to be interesting. I've never really wondered what are the complexities of Order 66 until now with the Maul thing and Ahsoka. It's like Ahsoka technically isn't their general in that moment. So, like, are they going to turn on her? I mean, as loyal as they've been to her this whole time, even when she was gone, they probably will. They'll associate her with that leader.
And Maul planted the seed in Ahsoka's mind.
Yeah.
And I don't know, and maybe she just discredited it.
Yeah.
But if it is something that she'll be thinking about in these last few episodes, 2 episodes, it has to be in the back of her mind that he told her,
oh my
soon,
God. Yeah.
the Jedi aren't going to matter. There aren't going to be any Jedi to worry about these things. And I mean, he almost says that verbatim to her.
Yeah.
So he knows something about Order 66 is going to happen. I don't know if he knows exactly what it is, but he knows that something big is going to happen to the Jedi. And I'm just ready for, the end of this to just come really fast and be, go, 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 because I feel like we're at that point.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking now too, like when in Rebels, when she first senses Darth Vader, but senses Anakin.
Yeah.
And so, no, that can't be. Now that moment is even that much more bigger, because it's like,
was she thinking about it this
Maul
whole time?
told me. Maul said Anakin was the key to all of this. Like, it's just insane. The fact that it's just added so much more, and all of this it's so seamlessly coming together. It's just insane. Like, they're actually telling a story that matters here. And I cannot commend Dave Filoni anymore on what he's doing. And I'm going to, give another shout out to Sam Witwer, because I know that he's also had involvement in some moments here in these final few episodes. And I want to know what those were, because he's given some advice to Dave and said, hey, like, I think this will work really well. Like, what was that? You have so many passionate people working on this that understand their character and say, well, this makes much more sense for Maul to do this. And Dave saying, I trust that. Yeah, absolutely. It's what a collaborative effort. What a just genius storytelling. And it blows my mind. I never would have thought Maul would have foreseen all of this. And maybe there's a little side to Maul that you're kind of rooting for, that in an alternate universe, like David, it texted me like, what would have happened if Ahsoka would have went off with him? What would have transpired? What if Anakin had come to Mandalore? How would things have been different?
So many what ifs.
It's so crazy, but I love, people wonder, what the hell does Maul want with Mandalore? We really know now that there was a huge purpose behind that. And yeah, it's to gain power, but like there's something else there. You're going to send one of your best down here to come handle this situation. So I don't know. Luke, did you have anything else about this episode that really stood out?
Some of my final thoughts. I don't usually make major predictions, but through the conversation and the things that you, Michael and Holly, you've been saying, when I said, I'm surprised that the confrontation with Maul seems to be over. I don't necessarily think we've seen the last of Maul.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of envisioning, I think things Holly was saying kind of made me bring this up in my mind. I'm envisioning the clones certain clones, not Rex obviously, but certain clones trying to take Ahsoka out and taking Maul out, assuming he's in Republic custody.
Yeah.
Because they're Force wielders, and they, Palpatine probably wants the board swept clean. Like, I want to be the Force wielder, me and my apprentice. We don't want a bunch of other ones running around. We want to have full control of the Force. So I could see Ahsoka and Maul sort of being, teaming up to their mutual benefit when they're faced with potential execution by the clones. I think that would be interesting.
Read my mind.
Way that goes down. And what I need to do and will do in the next couple days is watch again the Rebels episode, or it might be a couple episodes that it takes for them to, when they go to Malachor, Ahsoka, Ezra, and Kanan, and then run into Maul, and then they run into Vader. After watching this, and I need to watch that stuff again to see like what is Ahsoka's initial reaction to coming across Maul again, and how does that play against what we're seeing here? Maybe if that gives any clues to what we're going to see as the arc concludes. So that's definitely my homework before the next episode comes out.
You are absolutely right. We are so synced on this episode. I was gonna make that bold prediction, because I'm just like, how crazy would it be for them to have that moment where they have to use each other to get out of there, and that the only way Ahsoka can get out of that moment is if she lets Maul go, that she knows she's going to need him to get out of that moment, but that moment will be brief in so much as they don't have time to talk about Anakin and what's about to transpire, but they leave on terms of what the hell just happened. And will we ever cross paths again? I don't know. Like, it's just, yeah, you're right, Luke. Let's find those Rebels episodes. Let's see what those initial reactions were like, because it's as well as things have blended together, it's gonna work. So yeah, I never even considered them seeing each other again after this, but they may need to join forces in the moment just to escape. It's crazy. Holly, any final?
I don't know.
Thoughts?
I just want to wait and see.
God, I don't know if I can. Now, am I correct in that who told us that they're releasing the final episode on May the 4th? Is that true? I
don't know.
I don't know.
That would be, that's like the middle of the week, isn't it?
So I don't think
it's a Monday.
I don't think that's correct.
Okay.
According to the internet, which could also be incorrect,
Yep.
episode 11 is going to be aired on May 1st.
Yeah, that's Friday. Yeah.
Episode
Okay.
12 is going to be aired on May 8th.
That
Okay.
makes sense.
So Friday. Okay. Yeah.
The rumors way back when, before we knew the exact release schedule, there were all these rumors that the finale was going to be May 4th. You know, for that connection of May the 4th be with you, but then they're dropping the behind the scenes discussions of Mandalorian on May the 4th.
Yeah.
So I think some wires got crossed with the rumors there, and that's what we're getting on May the 4th.
Yeah.
But they're going to stick to the Friday release schedule for Clone Wars.
You're absolutely right. And Luke, I want to get just a minute of your thoughts on that trailer. And counsel, a lot of my colleagues hadn't watched the trailer and maybe don't have the appreciation that I have for Star Wars documentaries. Holly's a big doc fan, so
I am a big doc fan.
Need to watch the trailer. But it felt to me like a nice blend of, I love the director and the Jedi, but I also love that round table that they did on Solo and those special features. It feels like we're getting a combination of that. What did you think of that little tease of what we're about to get?
Man, Michael, our minds are just melding so much. My response is going to be, I love special features. Do you know how many times I've watched The Director and the Jedi?
Oh, boy.
I think I've watched it more than The Last Jedi.
It's a casual family affair.
It really is. It really is.
Yeah, so, I'm really looking forward to that. It looks like it's going to be a lot of just roundtable discussion because and maybe light on the... Like there was actually a documentary crew there on set, doing it as they were filming it, and more retrospective. Like let's all get together and talk about how it was. Yeah, which I think will still be enjoyable given the personalities involved, Favreau and Filoni. Taika Waititi, I'm really interested to hear from because I think the finale he directed was just fantastic, and he did such a great job. And he didn't speak in the trailer at all. So I think some of the juicy stuff is going to come from him once you actually get to see it. But the director that did talk more, other than Filoni and Favreau in the trailer, what's his name? It's harder for me to pronounce. But he had some really interesting things to say. You could feel the passion in his voice. So I'm really excited to see, and they're going to get the actors in too, to discuss it. So that's going to be really great. I want to throw one more thought on the Clone Wars episode that I forgot to mention that I have to, was the Solo Easter egg with the brief Dryden Voss image on there. I have to get that in there for my love of Solo. I thought that was great to just throw that little subtle Easter egg in there. No lines or anything of dialogue, but just, Maul's telling the syndicates to lie low, and you see the Pikes, you see the Falling, and you see Dryden Voss there. So
that's funny that you brought that up, because earlier, a couple episodes before that, when we see Ahsoka kind of spying on the hologram of Maul, and then he senses her, doesn't he talk about his...
He talks about the Pikes. He's saying, "Hey, you better get your crap together, because I'm sure Crimson Dawn would like to take your place." Yeah, he brought up
Crimson Dawn, and then Michael and I had a conversation about who's running Crimson Dawn at that time. Was it Darth Maul or was it Dryden Voss? Was Dryden Voss already there during that time? And I kind of feel like this answered that question.
Yeah, he seems like he was the first probably, and in the last that we know of, other than oh God, why do I forget her name? Kira.
Yeah, and the reason that sparked my Dryden Voss Easter egg, the conversation about the special features for Mandalorian, was because the Solo movie was a little light on special features. I think because of the turmoil of the director turnover and everything. But one of the things on there is roundtable discussion with Ron Howard and the actors in an identical setting. It might be the same set
probably
that we see them all, just black everywhere, and the people sitting around a round table was what they put in for one of the main Solo special features. So that's what makes me also think it's not going to be a lot of on set footage.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, because of some of the turmoil and stuff of that production, they're like, lock that up, burn it, whatever. Don't ever show that. But and then maybe they just weren't. They didn't have the budget to also do a documentary crew alongside the filming of The Mandalorian so much, so there won't be as much footage like that as we get for a bigger production. But I think it will still be really enjoyable just to get more insights from the creators.
Oh, it's something I appreciate the most.
I think the director that you were thinking of was Rick Famuyiwa.
Oh, nice pronunciation, Holly.
I couldn't for the life of me remember his name.
Yeah, that's a hard one. So
yeah, phrasing. It's it's so crazy that we're not getting a Solo 2, and it's the what we're seeing happen with Maul right now in the Clone Wars just makes me even so much more.
We
want
deserve more
something
Maul.
else with Maul, because the position that he's in then with Kira, and we know where he's at with the crime syndicates and all this that he's went through, and then up to that point, it's like, are we ever gonna fill in that time in between? It tells the crime syndicates lay low, crap's about to go down, and then we are where we are with Kira. I don't know. I want to see it. It's tragic if we don't get more, but who knows what the future holds. I mean, maybe, there will be a huge push for more Maul stuff, and maybe more interesting stories come out of this after Order 66, and maybe he's gained a little more insight that could, make growing his empire even more interesting. I don't know, but it's a great time to be a Star Wars fan. Holy cow.
And it feels like we're at the point in Star Wars where with Disney Plus coming out, I kind of feel like we, the people, have a little more say in what kind of content comes out with this new platform. And so I feel like it is one of those scenarios which it's kind of like an ask and you shall receive. I think that if there is enough like yearning for more of that Maul content, I think eventually at some point we may get it.
Yeah, they knew people wanted to see the end of Clone Wars here, and we're going back to older characters, but it's working. But something else, I'll kind of end with this, that Filoni said at the end of the trailer for the behind-the-scenes stuff, is just like, he's so shocked how much people want new character development and content from Star Wars. He's just blown away by that. And I love that he's surprised by that. It shows how kind of humble he is about all of this, and that he's doing it because he loves it, and that's why he's doing such a great job with this, and why people are so welcoming to his writing and his storytelling is because he loves what he's doing, and this isn't just trying to prove himself. He loves what he's creating, and it comes through, and I love that he's surprised by it, and I love that he said at the end of it that George always told us that Star Wars needs to have hope. And I about wept. He said, it's not Star Wars if it doesn't have hope. Always remember it needs to have hope in it. And it's just, that's why I watch it. I look at the hope in Darth Maul, even though he has a tragic ending, even though we know he's, blinded by the dark side, there's still a little bit of hope in him. That he could have been, the Redeemer. He could have done right by the galaxy. And he fell short because of his personal aspirations, because of his spitefulness and the revenge that ultimately led to his downfall and didn't allow him to grow. It's just crazy. And a character like that, who seems so simple in the beginning, becomes a very tragic yet could be hopeful character. It's mind-blowing to me, and I love everyone that's writing stuff for Star Wars right now. It's fantastic. Thank you, Jon Favreau. Thank you, Dave Filoni. It's fantastic. Gives us something to talk about, that's for sure.
For sure.
But any other final thoughts on Clone Wars?
Just excited for Friday.
Friday is becoming quite the holiday here. Let's just hope the power doesn't go out again, or the internet. Holly was a little worried that, the pandemic was going to get a lot more interesting. May turn into The Walking Dead here at any point. So nothing else, guys. Nothing else from me either, guys. If you enjoyed that, go to Spotify. Go to. I actually can't do any reviews on Spotify, Holly. Go to iTunes. Give us a review if you enjoy that. Give us a 5-star rating if you enjoyed it, and tell us why, Holly. It's really important to us to hear what people are enjoying about what we're talking about, right?
Yeah, tell us what you like, because we
Yeah.
want to give you what you want.
Exactly. It's great to say love the podcast and all that good stuff. Tell us what it is that you're enjoying, but go do that. It really helps us out. Helps us, get to other listeners and get to share in our sweatiness and our nerdiness with you guys. And it's why we do Casual Counsel. It's why we do trivia. It's why we do these hangouts with folks that we enjoy spending time with and talking about Star Wars, because we thoroughly enjoy it. It just comes out, and I hope you can tell that in the conversation and by our interactions with you guys. But go do that. Get in that group on Facebook. It's a thriving group. It's such a fun place to interact with. There's so much speculation. There's so much additional great conversation going on in that group by a bunch of nerds like us. It's so good. So you need to get in there. You need to join it. You need to follow it and get in there and get sweaty. I love that the nerds are getting a little more comfortable with getting sweaty. Some newcomers I've seen posting stuff in there who typically we don't hear from. They're just getting excited, letting their nerd flag fly, and I always love that.
The nerds and their nerddom.
That's right. Get in there and check that out. Hit us up however you can on Facebook, on email, voicemail. Holly has really great posts on Instagram and all of that goodness. So
somebody needs to send us an email soon so I can make a fool of myself reading it.
Well, Holly, your blonde moment at the beginning of the episode, I think, I
did it for myself.
Sealed that one for you. But guys, I hope you enjoyed this. Clone Wars, man, it's going to get emotional. We're going to be talking about it again next Monday, so make sure you watch Friday and stay tuned. We'll be talking to you soon. May the Force be with you.